Some viewers may find this disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Oh, this episode was a long time coming, and it's put me in a rather interesting position, because while I think that this episode is bad, it's got a reputation similar to One Course Meal and a Pal for Gary, that to be frank, I don't think that it's really earned. Let's get a few things out of the way. First of all, this episode is not a ripoff of One Course Meal, just because it contains a suicide joke. That's like saying that Squid's Day Off is a ripoff of Squeaky Boots because they both feature a character going insane. For an episode to be a ripoff, it needs to steal at least a majority of the previous plot. This episode does not. Secondly, this is not the Squidward suicide creepypasta. The actual creepypasta did not happen. It doesn't exist, and all it really is an internet ghost story. And it's not a very good one. Any creepypasta that uses the word hyper-realistic is crap on the spot, rule of thumb. The episode may be referencing the creepypasta, hell, it might be inspired by the creepypasta, but it is not the creepypasta. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into why the episode is actually bad, which is pretty different because if you don't consider each of the shorts at the top of my top 10 lists, this is probably the closest atrocity to being good so far. I'm serious about this. Then again, the episode starts with a good old Patrick Star eating something out of the dumpster. And considering what I previously reviewed, that's not a good way to start an episode. Anyway, we see Spongebob going through some kind of book, and the similarities are striking. But seriously, this is a book that Spongebob is happy to share. It's SpongeBob's workbook. He says that it's his happy book, and that's where all of his happiest memories have occurred. SpongeBob asks what Squidward's happiest memory is, and apparently Squidward doesn't have one. And he sounds pretty depressed inflecting on that. Alright, let's talk about continuity here. I understand that things don't carry over from episode to episode, and no matter where they end, the next episode will usually start from the very same beginning. There are loads of shows like that. Hell, Dexter's Laboratory pretty much ended each episode with the world blowing up. But here's the thing, that only goes so far. We've seen in numerous occasions, hinted or blatantly, that Squidward has had happy memories. Things like Band Geeks and House Fancy, hell, even Truth or Square. What I'm getting at is this. There's a difference between neglecting continuity and neglecting a piece of the character, a piece of the style and the formula. In most episodes, Squidward is, I guess, glum. But this episode, he's literally clinically depressed. But saying that Squidward has never had a happiest memory is kind of like saying that SpongeBob doesn't know who his parents are. It's something we almost constantly see conflicting evidence against. It's one of those things, you know? It's not going against continuity, it's going against the structure of your show. I'll grant that they do this fairly often, you know, with SpongeBob supposed to be annoying, not blind to the world around him. Speaking of SpongeBob, he's actually worried about Squidward not having a happiest memory. It actually seems really genuine. Squidward tells SpongeBob to leave him alone, and then he starts crying. SpongeBob decides to help Squidward find a happiest memory. Unfortunately, that doesn't work. They go to a symphony, but Squidward gets hit in the eye. Yeah, please stop hitting people in the eyes with shit. It's not funny. They find Squidward's art in a museum. No reason is ever given except bringing Squidward into misery. An amazing artist comes by and destroys it with a flamethrower. Flamethrowers don't work underwater, there is no reason for the art to be here, blah blah blah, you've heard me complain about this before. Oddly enough though, the episode entitled Fiasco was actually kinda decent. Next, SpongeBob takes Squidward in a balloon, but he's afraid of heights. All this time you're wondering why I didn't consider this episode for the Squidward torture porn list. Well, I don't really consider this episode a Squidward torture porn. You see, in episodes like Boating Buddies or Choir Boys, it's all about trying to tear Squidward down, make him miserable. In this episode, SpongeBob is actually trying to cheer Squidward up. And here's the thing, the important thing. I actually believe his intent. I don't know why. Maybe it's that not any of the bad things that happened to Squidward, most of them anyway, weren't caused by SpongeBob, at least in the beginning where it was most important. At the end of the semi-montage, Squidward is defeated and he goes into his house. He is quite literally depressed, and this is probably the episode's biggest problem. They play the depression really seriously. Like, it's not funny or compelling or anything, it's just really sad. 2 weeks later, and we see that the house is in shambles. Squidward doesn't want to see SpongeBob.
Well, at least we know he's still alive.
Those words send this episode miles ahead of episodes like A Pal for Gary or One Course Meal. They treat this serious issue as a serious issue. Novel concept, I know. But here's the thing. When you're dealing with a concept like this, jokes don't really work. it shatters the tone completely. I mean, The Mask is a great episode, but I wouldn't call it funny or anything. Yes, there were jokes, but there were very few and very far in between. I mean, this concept here wasn't beyond salvaging. An episode about SpongeBob trying to cheer Squidward up is a decent idea for a SpongeBob episode, especially if they went with the usual dynamic of Squidward simply being annoyed by SpongeBob. But let's get serious. Let's talk about what you guys want me to talk about here. The suicide jokes. Yes, there are two of them here. Squidward depressedly shoves his head into an oven only to pull out brownies. That's actually kinda easy to miss. I mean, my little sister missed it the first time she watched it, so to make sure that you didn't miss it, they had him throw up a rope, only to pull up a birdcage, which my little sister didn't miss. So, let's talk about them, because, to be honest, they've done suicide jokes before. Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 4, for example. No, not One Course Meal. That wasn't a joke, that was a part of the fucking plot. Why it works in other areas is because you know that the character isn't going to end it, making it pretty much an exaggeration of the scenario. Here, though, the joke is Squidward gonna kill himself? Which, let's be completely honest here, isn't funny. When you're worried if a guy is actually gonna kill himself, then it probably can't be funny. What do you guys want me to say? It doesn't work, it can't work, and everyone knows that it can't work. Anyway, Squidward gets a package, SpongeBob pops out and traps him in a box. Then he takes Squidward to a party full of paper-mache SpongeBobs. Squidward tears them apart and claims that he's found a happiest memory. Okay, so final thoughts here. How would I make this episode work? Simple. Make it less depressing. Don't have Squidward literally in a depression that honestly didn't seem to have much of a catalyst, as if they were implying that Squidward really does have clinical depression at all times. He's constantly muttering how empty his life is, even before SpongeBob tries and fails to give him a happiest memory. Like I said, SpongeBob trying to cheer Squidward up after, I don't know, a bad day or something would have been fine. Taking it as seriously as they did, number one, it kinda comes out of nowhere. I mean, this episode starts with general shenanigans, so you're not expecting it to go full-fledged depressing. While nowhere near as tasteless as One Course Meal or a Pal for Gary or even Stuck in the Ringer, yeah, those suicide jokes shouldn't be here. I don't know what show could make, oh, is he gonna kill himself? Work as a joke, but it certainly isn't this one. Honestly, it kind of feels like it's trying too hard to be shocking, which doesn't make any sense. One thing's for sure, SpongeBob doesn't really need to try that hard to be shocking.
You see? You never quite know what he's going to do. He's so spontaneous.
Well, how do we escape?
Did you hear that, boys? They want to know how to escape.